Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ayşe Süberker. Deep divisions have taken root across the Middle East and North Africa. Both regions have become a battleground where opposing camps are competing to fill a power vacuum left by multiple conflicts and the toppling of long-time rulers. But few countries have intervened more forcefully and with deadly effect than the United Arab Emirates. Mohammed bin Zayed, the UAE's 58-year-old crown prince and de facto ruler, has used his country's vast wealth, including a nearly $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund, to finance his ambitions in the Middle East and North Africa. Let's take a look at some of the trouble spots that MBZ, as he is popularly known, has gotten his country into. And joining me now is Mehmet Ogutcu, who is a former Turkish diplomat, and Mahjoob Zweiri, who is the director of the Gulf Studies Center at Qatar University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. So in this report, we saw a number of countries which the United Arab Emirates has intervened economically, politically, and militarily. It is no secret that Abu Dhabi has been pursuing aggressive foreign policy with the backing of some countries. We'll also touch on its role in Somalia, Sudan, and Qatar. But Mahjoob, give us an overall picture of what drives the United Arab Emirates foreign policy. What kind of strategic gains it is getting out of this multi-layered interventionism?
It's important, Aisha, to look at the context. The context of all of this intervention is basically what was happening in the Arab world. It's the Arab Spring. Pre-Arab Spring, Emirates did not have this role. Three things push United Arab Emirates to do so. One, the political vacuum in the Arab world. Secondly, basically the determination to maintain the status quo as it was before 2010. And thirdly, some economic interest. And those three elements together basically shaped the foreign policy of United Arab Emirates since 2010.
So on the other hand, Mehmet, tell us about the nature of Turkey-UAE relations, because they're at their lowest point. There's this immense mistrust between them. When we take a look at the international affairs, they place themselves at the opposite camps. And tell us, why do you think they drifted apart that dramatically? Is it because of the Arab Spring?
Well, Arab Spring actually was one of the reasons why things have differed between the two countries, especially Turkey's strong support for Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, which is seen as an existential threat to United Arab Emirates, especially Abu Dhabi, and then also Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. So whereas Turkish relations with UAE and Saudi Arabia and then Egypt were at an exemplary level at some point, working together as a sort of a Sunni alliance in the region, vis-a-vis Iran and elsewhere, and things have changed dramatically now. I think one reason is that Turkey has abandoned its traditional, in quotation marks, peace at home, peace abroad, have become a regional power to reckon with. Because from whatever angle you look at Turkey, all the way from China to Germany, Saudi Arabia to Russia, Turkey is the real regional superpower to reckon with. By virtue of its economy, military, cultural hinterland, and economic interests, whatever you name. Now with the activist policy of UAE and Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and Turkey is seen sort of as a threat, and trying to project its regional dominance, not only in the Middle East, but also in East Med, but Africa and Horn of Africa, wherever you turn. So, however, I don't think that this is going to work, because Turkey is not a match for them. This is a huge
country
regional
when compared
superpower.
to. Now, if you will, let's take a closer look at the Emiratis' foreign entanglement in the region. As we mentioned in the report, the UAE is militarily involved both in Libya and Yemen for years. In Egypt, it is suspected of helping overthrow country's first democratically elected President Morsi and install General Sisi. In Sudan, the UAE supported the junta who cracked down on protests against deposed leader al-Bashir. In Somalia, the UAE is expected to open a military base in north and is currently backing breakaway provinces against the central government. And lastly, its blockade on Qatar nears almost 3 years now. So, having opened numerous fronts in different countries with which it shares no border, no proximity, no historic ties, its latest actions in Libya drew a lot of criticism and put the United States in a different position when the Tripoli government seized the weapons of the US, US-manufactured ones. Tell us about the UAE's objectives in Libya. What does it really want?
Again, I go back to the key word, is the context. For each of those cases you mentioned, there is a context. The context of Libya, two things. One, United Arab Emirates did not want Arab Spring to succeed in building a nation state in Libya. Secondly, they have no interest to see sort of state building, a nation building in Libya. And most important thing, they want to have a weak state close to Egypt, because let's not forget there is a very strong ties between Egypt and the United Arab Emirates. And to have an example, a nation state like Libya emerging, being strong, that will not help Egypt, which basically has a coup against the legitimate president. Yeah. So basically this tells you why the context is important. If you go to Yemen, there is another context. The Yemen was...
Yeah, we're going to touch on the Yemen issue, but tell me how and to which extent is this Tripoli government an existential threat both for the United Arab Emirates and Egypt? Why?
I don't think that they are existential threat to them.
That's what Egyptians say.
This is what they say. I mean, when you look at the picture now, General Haftar, as you know, he came out of Peru from the United States where he was in exile. And now he's controlling almost 85% of the country and 70% of the oil resources in Libya. And he was about to sign this ceasefire agreement engineered by Russia and Turkey. And all of a sudden, after a telephone call from United Arab Emirates, probably from MBZ, and he had to fly from Moscow to Abu Dhabi. And I think it's part and parcel of the common objective of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt to have sort of a regional axe in the region, not allow a non-Arab country like Turkey to have more influence, because once you are in Libya and then you are in Yemen, Somalia, and Sudan, so this is going to have an impact on how Turkey will be projecting its power in the region. So also, most likely, US is behind that, rather than directly involved in this scheme of things. And it's using probably UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt to project its power in the region.
Okay, Mahjoob, although it's on the back burner now, I mean, tell us about what has happened in Yemen. Why do you think the United Arab Emirates is now actually winding down its presence, even at the expense of a drift with its ally, Saudi Arabia?
You know, United Arab Emirates joined the decisive storm when it started enjoying the support of the United States to this political operation. And while Saudi Arabia is saying they want to support the legitimate government, it appeared that Emirates and Saudis, they had different agenda in Yemen. Two things: one, the economic interest; secondly, the political interest. There was a very strong Muslim Brotherhood wing in Yemen, and we know that there is sort of demonization to Muslim Brotherhood as a whole. So basically, the same context again: anti-Muslim Brotherhood, as maintaining the status quo, weakening the nation state in Yemen, and those together basically pushed Emiratis to do whatever they done in Yemen.
And also there's Somalia, Mehmet. I mean, what does the UAE stand to gain by destabilizing Somalia? Because now it's backing semi-autonomous regions in the north.
Well, I mean, if you look
What's
at the
in it
map,
for
if
them?
you look at the map again, you will see that Somalia commands a very strategic choke point, and therefore it's also divided into two already, and therefore the interest of UAE and Saudi Arabia and Egypt, again, I see this as part of GCC countries plus Egypt minus Qatar, and trying to control this strategic position. This is also part of this talk we had before, whether we will have a Arab NATO.
Yes.
And so you have to
Anti-Iran,
think all this
anti-Iran,
think,
basically.
and anti-Iran as well. And Turkey's position here is a bit peculiar because of Turkey's strong support and association with Muslim Brotherhood. It has fallen into the category of sort of arch enemy in the region because they see Turkey as a long-term threat to their scheme and or design for that region. I think there is room for Turkey to reflect a bit more about this rather than looking into things only from the Ihwan perspective. I think with the new openings we see in Turkish government in Ankara, and rather than confrontational approach with all these countries in the region, perhaps a more constructive, because Turkey, as I said in the beginning, by any definition is the regional superpower.
Okay.
None of them can match or compete with Turkey in influence.
All right, gentlemen. I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you for joining me on Straight Talk. I appreciate it a lot.
Pleasure.
People in Hungary, a country of 10 million at the crossroads of Europe, have juggled multiple identities for centuries. While many Hungarians consider themselves European, there is some consensus their origin story begins further east. Hungary's prime minister recently renewed debate by suggesting most Hungarians had Turkish roots. Our correspondent Ali Mustafa visited Budapest to find out where some Hungarians believe they came from.
She's Turkish, a banker from Istanbul. He's Hungarian and a leading researcher on Turkey. And on this day in late 2019, Ceyda and Zoltan are promising to spend the rest of their lives together.
Evet, igen, yes.
Igen, evet.
It's the latest chapter in the shared history between Hungarians and Turks. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán says these shared ties may date back centuries, further than the Ottoman rule. Linguist Andra Zentnar says clues to how deep that connection is are evident in words common to both languages.
Népszerű és nagyon sokan tudják, még olyanok is, akik...
We can use a popular sentence to illustrate the similarities.
Hogy zsebemben sok kicsi alma van, zsebimde çok küçük elma var.
There are plenty of small apples in my pocket. Almost all Hungarians know this sentence.
While Hungarian and Turkish languages have certain common words, some say the connection is far deeper. Groups like the Hungarian Turan Foundation have taken the common ground even further, organizing the largest Turkic-inspired festival in Europe. It's called the Meeting of the Tribes, or Kurultai, a festival celebrating Europe's nomadic peoples, where tribes from as far away as Kazakhstan gather to pay homage to the greatest nomad of them all, Attila the Hun.
Attila az egyik legnagyobb birodalmat.
Attila built one of the largest empires in history, and this empire, the Western Hun Empire, had its center here in Hungary.
For Zoltán Varga, Hungarians were originally a nomadic people who came from the east. But what do Hungarians see?
I think we came from somewhere east of here, like in the Eastern Territories.
It's a bond built up over centuries. And people like Ceyda and Zoltan are strengthening these ties, ensuring they last well into the future. How do you feel? So you think it doesn't matter if he's Hungarian or Turkish?
We fell in love soon after we started dating. Identity, where you're from, is not the main issue in life. The most important things are love, happiness, and trust.
Ali Mustafa, TRT World, in Budapest, Hungary.
And joining me now, Halil Akinci, who is the first Secretary General of the Turkic Council, and Cavid Veliyev. He is the head of Foreign Policy Department at the Center of Analysis of International Relations based in Baku. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. So it's been 10 years since the establishment of the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, shortly Turkic Council, by Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkey. And now we see that the organization has gained an important momentum with the full membership of Uzbekistan, plus Hungary's observer status. Halil, you are the first Secretary General of this council. Tell us about what did you have in mind in the beginning, and where do you think the council stands now?
Now, you know, we after the Turkic summit, we decided to establish a secretariat, and with the Mahjoob agreement, it was established. Turkic Council, in short, and Türkeneşi in Turkish itself. It's based on two principles: to increase cooperation among the Turkish states, because there are many opportunities that support this idea. And secondly, the second principle is this should be based on sovereign equality of all the nations, member nations. And the third principle is it should be based, although it stems from cultural affinity, it should be based on material gains, creation of material gains.
Has it been achieved so far?
Well, it started. It started. For example, we started our first summit with a subject, with a headline, economic cooperation, so that peoples of the member states can reap some benefits from the cooperation.
We're going to talk about the economic cooperation part, but Cavid, how well connected it is, the Council, when compared to other international organizations?
You know, since 2009, I think the Turkic Council achieved serious achievements, had a serious achievement in many areas, but they have huge potential in many fields like transportation, economy, and policy. There are 4 areas which are cooperating: the foreign policy, economy, trade, and transportation, and tourism, also diaspora also. When we assess the relations or achievements of the Turkic Council, we should consider other points also. Without other points, we cannot assess the achievement. For example, the state building process of the Turkic states, or regional and global environment around them. For example, regional and global competition around the state. And unfortunately, today some of the states face direct territorial and security challenges, like Azerbaijan territories occupied by the...
I was going to ask about it. Has it been able to overcome its differences? Because we've seen a lot of disruptions, like you said, the Armenian invasion of Nagorno-Karabakh, Turkmenistan's foreign policy, and we know that the relations between Turkey and Uzbekistan had a kind of a low level. So are those problems overcome?
Actually, it's a common problem for all the organizations to act in the face of political development. But I think the Turkic Council last year, when we compare this issue with the beginning of the 90s, last year decided commonly in many cases. For example, at last summit in Baku, so we can refer to the 3 remarkable issues. For example, Turkic Council supported Turkish anti-terrorist operation in northern Syria. Turkic Council supported...
How significant it is.
It is very important.
Can we see the Turkic Council in the future acting as a one policy organization?
Okay, as I mentioned, in 19th, we cannot see such kind of single body in the face of political development. But today, as I mentioned, the three main issues they decided commonly, for example, peace operation, anti-terrorist operation. On Nagorno-Karabakh issue, they supported resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh issue. And third one, the Cyprus issue on the equal political right of the communities of the Cyprus.
So, Halil, do you think Russia is comfortable with the development of the Turkic Council?
Well, they haven't raised any questions so far. But let me refer to the geostrategic location of the Turkic states.
Okay.
They are surrounded by, all of them are surrounded by powerful states. It is not Switzerland. So one principle we established was non-interference or non-violation of the obligations of the states. For example, Kazakhstan has 7,000 kilometers long border with Russia. And to the east, you have China. To the south, you have Afghanistan, where everybody is fighting each other. So we took these things into consideration, so that without violating any principles which could be detrimental to their stability and sovereignty and independence, we are trying to establish mechanisms which would take further the already existing developments.
Okay, so in that perspective, now that an EU member state is on board the Council, tell us about the significance of Hungary's observer status.
Both sides, I mean Hungary and Turkic Council, strategically valuable side for each other. Because today I think that as a part of Turkic Council, Hungary feel himself comfortable in EU as a EU member. And secondly, Hungary is a connection point for Turkic Council member states to Europe and European Union. As during the Baku summit, the Prime Minister of Hungary said that the Hungary can be the bridgehead for the Turkic Council in European countries. And also, Hungary is now trying to get enlargement and neighborhood policy portfolio in European Commission, and I think it will help to develop Turkish-European Union relations and also Azerbaijan relations with European countries. So both sides strategically valuable for each other, and there is also energy and transportation project which is important for European countries goes through Hungary. And you know that in September there is a Turkic Council office representative opened in Budapest, and all Turkic Council states supported this.
So a bridge has been formed between Europe and the Turkic Council states. Halil, what's your take in Uzbekistan's membership, and do you think that the Turkic Council will enlarge in the future to come?
Uzbekistan is the most populous country in Central Asia. So their participation was important, and most of them were willing to participate, the intelligentsia in particular. But Islam Kerimov was blocking that. Now there is a change in administration, change in the power exchange hands. So the new president, Mirziyoyev, as the rest of the Uzbeks, have decided to join the Turkic Council. Now there is one problem. With Turkey and Azerbaijan and Central Asia, there is 1,000 years of difference. It's a cultural gap. Also, there is a gap in communications, in transport. So, in order to foster economic development, we had to solve this transport problem first. Now, the aim was a truck moving from a Turkic country like Uzbekistan should reach Turkey passing through Turkic territory. Now, this could be done because now we have established links between the two shores of the Caspian Sea, except we have one small impediment, Zangezur corridor, which was Azerbaijan territory, and it was given to Armenia by Stalin. Now, if we could resolve this problem, then Karabakh is, of course, part of the Azerbaijan territory. So it is in the interest of Armenia to make peace because they are a poor country and by
integrating itself into
integrating
this,
into the region,
into the region, yes.
Leaving aside the aggressive policy, which is really tantamount to lose-lose situation for this country.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time. Unfortunately, thank you for joining me on Straight Talk.
Okay.
Appreciate it a lot. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Ayşe Süberker. If you've got any comments, do share them with us on Twitter with the hashtag Straight Talk. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.